because this occurred to me, and I think it's the most important facet of what I would want to talk about, which is just that the way I make art is just to be constant. I mean, it's like when Jordan talks about that anecdote where I was doing work, that probably meant that I was like Google image searching shovels or something for like 4 hours, which to me is what I do to have fun, and also I think gets to count as art, and that's why art is great. So I'm just going to show you kind of a chronological survey of stuff I've done for the past few years. I draw comics, which under the name Important Comics, they're in the city paper, and I make books and stuff, and some of them look like this, or like this. Oh, I'm going to go real fast. Some look like this. I'm not going to talk about them. I also write plays sometimes. I've been in the 10-minute play festival for a couple times. They end up looking like this. I haven't directed them. Sarah Bass made these awesome costumes and directed this one. This is another one that Ben O'Brien did. I'm not going to talk about those either. I'm just going to talk about my fine artwork. This is a slide that did not rotate properly, so turn your head to the left. This is a drawing I just wanted to show everyone that I found from my drawings I did as a kid. I think it's really, really funny. I think I must have definitely started with the tail and then worked my way out and then ran out of room, and I just think that's hilarious. So I wanted to show everyone. Jump to my senior show when I went to SUNY Purchase in New York. This was in 2003. The show was called Dracula Hanks. And I was a sculpture major, and I immediately stopped making sculpture upon leaving college because you can't make sculpture when you don't have any room to keep all your stupid sculptures. But I think that they like relate to the stuff that I've done, that I do now, that I've done in between, so I wanted to show them. Basically, I was just trying to make things that I thought were really funny and beautiful at the same time, and I used a lot of found stuff that I would kind of randomly paint in swatches or attach weird toys to each other. I'm really into trying to make things kind of as awkward as possible, which I think is a funny joke. I was really into this piece where I put this fluorescent light underneath all this fabric, but then it's almost completely obscured, which I think is a good joke. This is another piece where I took my horrible piece from bronze casting class that didn't come out at all, and I used it to weigh this monstrosity down. Then I'm skipping to the series of paintings I did in 2008 called The Thing Itself. Oh, by the way, if anyone has any thoughts or questions, you should just yell them at me throughout this. The Thing Itself, which is a series of paintings I did. I think that Alex and I actually have a lot of similar interests, whereas he does these very labor-intensive projects. I'm going like the bare minimal route. But I am also really interested in like sort of industrial kind of imagery and things like that. And I would obsessively collect all these images from Google image search and just into folders on my computer, like categories of whatever. At this time, I was really into objects that were on like a plain white field, that were usually like in a catalog or something. So these I did, they're like 8.5 by 11. They're just a shitty print that I did with my inkjet printer and then painted on with gouache, and sometimes there's whiteout or pen on them. And just trying to take these like sort of stupid, inconsequential objects and make what I thought were interesting, simple forms out of them. And I'm really into sort of using as much egalitarian kind of materials as I can. Like I purposefully didn't try to find images that would be of an appropriate resolution to blow up, and I didn't use a good printer. I printed them on shitty paper. And to me that is important because a lot of the work I do is just sort of things I'm filling all my spare time with wherever I happen to be, and I enjoy sort of the challenges of like being resourceful with what I have at hand, and I think that I'm more interested in work that I think any given person could make with the supplies that they have in their normal life. Sometimes I feel like spending a lot of money on art is sort of cheating, so I don't try to do it. Plus, who wants to have to spend a lot of money on it? So there's like a whole bunch of these things. There aren't too many in this list, but these are some collages that were from what was supposed to be a similar series of paintings, but I couldn't get them to work the right way. I tried painting on them, it didn't really come together. And I kind of found these pictures again recently and was like, oh, I think I just like these as collages in and of themselves, and that's why I didn't want to paint on them. And again, they're sort of like a lot of simple colors and shapes, and this is from a huge folder of pictures of nature that I thought were good, that I collected. These are the same kind of thing as before. They're twice as big, and I don't know if you can tell, but that's because I taped two pieces together with Scotch tape down the middle. Yeah, I was really into that. That was really good. And again, kind of just trying to make things that felt awkward to me. This is the slide that's supposed to have video on it, but it doesn't. So, this is the first time I tried to do any animation. It's going to be really loud. Hey, that's part of it. So in this I was thinking a lot about like GIF animations and this other video that I wanted to show you with Cam, which is an animation called Tango that's really great, which this ball in the window kind of references. It's a much more complicated and impressive animation where there's a room and a boy throws a ball through the window and climbs in, and then people start filling the room slowly and interacting with each other and kind of narrow missing each other. And it was made, before digital media, and it's a very impressive feat. And this is sort of my digging around version of it with whatever objects I had at hand or pictures I was drawing anyway of Homer Simpson. And it's made to be an infinite loop video, which is another thing that I was thinking about a lot, and that is important to me in GIF animations, the idea of things just being this perpetual situation, and especially a very small thing perpetuated forever is very interesting to me. These eventually fade out and start over. That piece is called O. Okay, the next bunch of crap is from this show called, what was the name of this show? I forgot. Oh, So Many Organs. It was a show I did with Liz Donadio and Ryan Sorrell at the old Current Gallery. And these are a bunch of like giant cardboard things I made. They're cardboard and like glue and tempera paint, which again I'm trying to use only the worst. And these were made kind of with the idea that they would be shown again in the future after having very bad care taken of them, which is coming true. They've just been in a pile in my basement for forever. But I was interested in making these pieces out of cardboard, kind of with the intention of just not being precious about them, but maybe showing them repeatedly and having the deterioration of them kind of be able to be a part of it and be an interesting progression, kind of. And again, obviously, a lot of cartoon imagery. This is definitely the bull from the Bugs Bunny cartoon, I realize. And this, that Kate probably is related. It's all Looney Tunes. And these are a couple of drawings and sort of sketches I have been doing, obviously, Daffy. This is a series, the same kind of wash thing, but on these photos of plants, where I was sort of trying to expand, but I wasn't ready to. I still needed there to be like a parameter, which in this case was like, okay, it's going to be a green thing. So then just kind of filling in the spaces. And so kind of going from this imagery and my like obsession with Google image searches and just these like found photo type stuff, I started kind of wanting to make my own versions of that. And I started taking photos of these lumps of clay. And it's weird to try to do something and make it look as amateurish and unintentional as possible. It's actually extremely difficult. So I don't know how successful these are, but it was fun doing them. I'd like to do more. Trying to make a lump of clay look like something that you weren't, that was just like, oh, that's just what the lump of clay happened. It's really complicated and weird. It's kind of a total mindfuck. And then again, so then I've started kind of like going from this interest in found stuff and making my own and kind of starting these like curation kind of works. And these were sort of things I started doing just fucking around at work, usually on Facebook, where I started making these Facebook photo albums kind of with these premises. Like this one on the left, I don't know if you can see it, it's called Vacation Pictures. I had been looking up all these images of scaffolding, and I noticed that these sort of detached scaffolding pictures were always like in front of a building or like in like a nice sunny day. To me, they just look exactly like what everyone's vacation photos look like. They're like, look, it's me in front of a bank or in front of a lake. So I made this album called The Vacation Pictures, and I started doing some more of them. There was one called Fond Memories that was all garbage cans, a bunch of blue tape, which just looks good. The Universe, that one was all insulation. And my plans, which is sort of when I started doing something that will relate to a piece I'm going to talk about later called On Google, which was when I sort of first started incorporating things that weren't actually the same thematically but visually related to each other. And that was something I got really into later. But in between, these are a bunch of photos I took from the window of the bus. It's called My Trip to New York, which is where I was going on the bus. Just trying to take all these kind of blurry images, which I like as someone's like trip photos. I'd like to try to like show a slideshow of these to my family. Especially in New York, where it's, you know, it's flashy. But I just really like these like blurry kind of just industrial nothingness images. And these construction sites that are everywhere. And I really like the fact that I had to use my terrible, shitty cell phone and kind of the limitations of what I was able to do with that. I definitely really like working within limitations and trying to see what I can do with it. These are some more photos that are just some cell phone pictures and stuff. This is the bathroom at the Evergreen. Now we have to talk about The Simpsons for a long time. So I obsessively watch The Simpsons, like so many of us, which I just basically have it on constantly, no matter what I'm doing. It's just playing on my computer. And I started, but going back to the kind of the GIF thing, at one point I started making these animated GIFs of like particular small moments from the show. Kind of, again, going back to the idea of like taking this very brief moment and making it way longer than it was intended to be made. Which in a lot of cases results in very creepy images. Or maybe despondent. Hey, wait, maybe I should forget it. I'm just gonna scroll down. At first I was sort of focusing on these like harrowing images of just like the house is on fire forever, or there's one of Mark crying. Let's see. No, this one kind of makes me nauseous. Let's see. I don't think this one is spooky. Here's another. I love this one because who's staring at this house? It's so horrible. Oh yeah. Nelson being brutalized. This is the first one I ever made. This March. Like, she's so sad. She's just crying for that long. Some of them are a lot sillier than others. A lot of these. This one I think is kind of terrifying. So that's pretty much all of those. Those are some, these, the rest of the things I'm probably going to talk about are things that are sort of just perpetual projects of mine that I don't know if will ever happen to, but I might never stop doing them. In watching The Simpsons incessantly, I also started taking screen caps, and my boyfriend Alan and our friend Jordan and I all started emailing each other these screen caps of different moments from The Simpsons, and every day we kind of just get like 5 more from each other, and a lot of them were really funny, or like really abstract, or like a really good joke, or a bunch of different things. And Alan and I kind of got obsessed with the ones that were really abstract and never contained people, and kind of how when you put those together, you get this really weird sort of vision of like the other world of the Simpson universe, and kind of you can kind of just appreciate these strange abstract drawings on our own. And so we kind of started this blog, which is called Our Findings, which is just those screen caps and kind of we just sort of obsessively add to this. There's like 800 or something posts on here now. Of all these are all Alan's. I'm gonna scroll down. But I think you get some really interesting juxtapositions, I think, with the images. You get to kind of like, you know, there's this particular color scheme that becomes very apparent. And it's nice to kind of just imagine like the stories that these separated images have to them. And sometimes they're just like, you just have no idea what you're even looking at. Like that. Who's texting me? There's millions of those. So kind of because of doing that so obsessively, I got really into screen cap kind of stuff in general. At this point, I kind of can't watch anything without like looking for screen caps, and especially any moment, like when I watch Seinfeld, any moment the characters aren't on screen, I'm like looking at the individual frame for a second, being like that, and kind of analyzing it really quickly, which is weird and sort of distracting, but very fun. And I kind of am like, I wonder if that's just what photographers go around doing constantly everywhere. I remember one point when we were being really obsessive about it, Jordan said something about how she was walking around and she saw this thing, and she was like, I really wanted to take a screen cap with my eyes. It's like, it's photography. But that is also definitely like the mindset that I have kind of gotten into as well. These are some screen caps I can't show. Well, maybe on the website. Hold on, let me go to the website. So yeah, kind of in that zone, I was watching the Garfield Halloween special. Let's see if I can find it. This is embarrassing. All right, we're going to my website. Just a moment. This is so stupid. I just like how this GIF flips though. But there's this one crazy scene where there's all these like weird ghosts that appear, and I just thought that as like individual images separated from the whole thing, it was just so bizarre. And so I made this GIF. And I was like drunk watching that show with like Jordan and Caroline, and I was like, I have to go to my room and take screen caps of it. It's insane behavior. But look at these crazy things. They're so weird. And they look really cool, and they're like awkward drawings for animation. There's that. Comes up. Oops. Oh yeah. So we get to this project that everyone thinks is really weird, which I call Blue Clouds, which is, I started watching Star Trek The Next Generation, and I really like the blue titles, the color of them, and so I just started doing this weird thing where I take screen caps of shots with the titles in them, and then I just blur the titles out real fast on Photoshop. And I think it looks really cool, and everyone I show this to thinks it's like so weird or stupid or something, but I really like it. And again, it's like, it's an interest, this is totally like a thing about limitations, because I just have watched the opening credits to like 4 seasons of Star Trek and not the episodes. And I'll like watch the credits over, like, I'll just be going through them, and I'm like, this one's bullshit. It'll like open on some really fascinating scene, and then by the time the credits start, they're just on the bridge, and I'll get really pissed off. And that's just ridiculous, but those are the parameters that I have to deal with in my life. So there's this opening piece too. I wanted to enter. Oh wait, this is a good one too. These two are like brother and sister. Oh, and this, I can't show you this. I don't know why it's still in here. These are all animated GIFs of these doors opening and closing, which are made out of the shot of the door opening and then I reverse them, and they're all different lengths, and you'd just love it if they were animated, but the thing won't work. Okay, so that brings us to this piece. Am I going on way too long?
No, you're good.
Okay. Hey, I could close this. So this next thing is sort of like my obsession right now. It's a Tumblr blog I have called I'm Google. And I'm not using Tumblr correctly at all with it, but it's a site where it basically is like harnessing this incessant, obsessive Google image searching that I do. And I also obviously use YouTube videos, and it's just sort of a constant stream of different thematically or formally like similar videos or images that I kind of string together in this never-ending series. I play these for a bit. I don't know if it'll just crash the computer. It's good that you can get them all going. These are all like things from Explorer. And so sometimes the jumps are bigger than others, like, this is like, all these images of clouds next to this instant snow. Those Japanese people are so dumb. But anyway, it's really, really fun. It's led me to all these weird things. I kind of end up learning like a very superficial amount about a lot of different topics, and it's really fun to try to sort of have a collection of things that I won't know how to get to, and it's fun to deal with that challenge. And I have sort of like vague, well, they're not vague, they're very specific, but like, a few like kind of rules about what kind of stuff I will or will not use, and it just kind of goes on and on like this forever. But I'll find these like crazy like YouTube pages or blogs that people have, because all of these are found images. So to me, that's the most interesting things, that like someone was compelled to take all of these pictures or make these videos. These are great. This is just people touching like sand. This is what like this whole YouTube channel is. It was so sick when I found it. It was cool. Alright, well, it's never gonna work. It's just a close-up of the hand touching the stuff. Like, that's what all of these are. It's so great. And this goes forever. I've been trying harder and harder. I think if you get to the bottom, you'll see that the transitions are not as clean. Now I'm kind of really trying to be pretty hardcore about them. And these are all just the kind of things that I am like constantly looking up anyway, because like I think that these curtains are really beautiful, or that these stacked chairs are really beautiful, and it's good to have an outlet for this sort of thing. I don't know, this goes on for eternity. And that's mainly the thing that I've been working on the most lately. And then I have a couple more just like weirdo things that are related that I've kind of been messing around with. These are some just sort of like Google image searches that I have selected a few items from that I think are really nice together. I don't know what I think I'm doing with this, but it's fun. Oh, these are actually from visually similar searches, which I don't know if you are on Google image search, but they introduced a new feature recently that's really cool, where you can search by an image and find images that are what Google considers visually similar, and then you get this like vast just grid, an array of just like, it's usually just based on colors. I've tried to use it with my blog on Google all the time, and somehow it never ends up helping me out at all. But these are fun. And this isn't going to work either. You're glad no one likes these, so it doesn't matter. These are some weird gifts I made you, no one cares about. And that concludes my lecture. Does anyone have any questions?
We have like 5 or 10 minutes of questions. I was wondering, like, I guess the last 2 things you've shown us, do you think, like, would you show these in a gallery? Or like, if someone tomorrow was like, Dina, I want you to show my gallery, what would you show?
I have shown on Google in a gallery, which was in like Cincinnati, so I actually don't know how it worked out. I would show all of these things in a gallery, absolutely. I don't know how exactly I would do that with some pieces, like I've considered how I would want to show GIFs or something like that, and I haven't really figured out what I think is a good solution to that. Google presents a problem because the way it was shown in Cincinnati was like projected onto a wall, and I think they had just like a computer that a person could access to kind of look through it, because it's like the video component is obviously very important, and I think the the ability to like be scrolling down yourself and kind of looking at it that way is also really important. Like it's pretty much a piece that has to be on the internet, and I think that's how you have to, or I think that's the best way to interact with it. So I don't, because people have talked to me about like making a print of it, or like a book, but to me it just like wouldn't even work, so I don't know. I was going to enter, someone I know is having a Captain Picard art show, and I wanted to send them these, but I think that they weren't into that. Any other questions? Yeah. I was really into learning this one term called the Cleveland Pack, which is apparently a way that you roll up a fire hose in order to then have it unroll correctly when you fill it with water. And there's a section that's all these like videos of that happening that's really cool. And it was weird to learn, like, it's like, I keep getting like sort of that kind of like, now I know this one phrase that firemen know. I hope I meet a fireman and I can say that to him. But that's a really good one. I'm really big into searching foam all the time in different capacities. That usually is good. The instant snow was a big success.
And for their paintings in the beginning, were they like black and white pronouns?
No. Color print. Small amount of ink. Anybody else? Jordan.
Can you talk about Simpsons as kind of like a cultural phenomenon that's like, it's been around for like 20 years,
I know.
and you're, I mean, you hate it now, like, or
Yeah.
you dislike it now or something? I've heard that before.
That's the sort of thing that I don't really like consciously take into account with this kind of stuff, and I think it's totally legitimate and worth talking about, but it's not something that I like necessarily have a lot to say. I think that I kind of already touched on this, that part of what I really like about the screen caps that don't have them in it is that there is something identifiable about them because they're so ingrained into our brains. Like people will see a picture that's separate and be like, it looks familiar and I don't know why. But yeah, the only Simpsons that count are seasons 3 through 9. That is agreed upon by everyone. And never let anyone tell you anything different. And now there's way more terrible episodes of The Simpsons than good episodes, and that is a tragedy of our times. And that's what I have to say about that. Anyone else?